this is probably going to be long, and it's probably not going to be pretty, so just bear with me and forgive me if I ramble. I'm kind of tired, but then again, I'm also kind of wired. I was watching wrestling, again, so yeah, it's going to be one of those things. I just felt compelled to turn on the camera and vent my frustrations and voice my fucking rage, my pent-up rage of just 25 years of watching this product every single day of my life. So let me just say right off the bat that the WWE does good things, and I'm more than happy to talk about when they do good things and admit and acknowledge when they do good things. I never have faith that they will do the right thing because they've burned me too many times, but I love being wrong. Nothing makes me happier than being proven wrong when it comes to wrestling, when they actually pull something correct out of their asses and do something right for a change. For example, the Brock Lesnar-John Cena match was fantastic. It was perfect. It was the best thing I've ever seen. But with WWE, with pro wrestling in general, and WWE in particular, every time they do something really right, for every one thing they do really right, there's like 5 things that they just fucking bumble their way through and drop the ball so hard, you just sit there in shock at how knuckleheaded they continue to be. I mean, the WWE, they always try to justify their shitty decision and their shitty decisions in booking as like, well, you don't know the business side of it. You're just the fans. We're coming at this from a business perspective. This is, you know... And I can understand that line of reasoning where, like, sometimes what's good for business might not be something that the fans like. But the thing is, a lot of times, you don't have to be a genius to see that it's not good for business. That their business could be so much more and so much larger and so much more booming if they just utilized the same common sense throughout the entire show as they do with like 1 to 2 programs per pay-per-view. Because that's usually what it is. It seems like they use all of their common sense and all of their smart booking and all of their intelligent business strategies on like one program or one part of the show or one segment or one feud at a time. There's always one... Any time in wrestling, there's always at least one thing that's amazing, and the rest is just shit. And the one thing that's amazing is the one thing that gives you just enough glimmer of hope to keep watching for the rest of your life. And that's how it's always been with wrestling. There's always... It's always 90% shit and just that little smidgen of what it could be that makes you keep on wanting to watch for the rest of your fucking life. And that's the ride. It's a lot easier getting on than getting off, as Ric Flair would say. Bronies, you always like to talk about can't get off the ride. Mr. Bones' Wild Ride. You have no fucking idea. You have no fucking idea what a wild ride is like. 25 years on this one, and still going strong. There is no getting off Mr. McMahon's Wild Ride. All you can do is turn on a camera and bitch when things piss you off. Like the impotent, basement-dwelling, fat, maggot, smark that you are. And I hate it. I hate that I fit the stereotype, too. What I'm saying is the WWE does good things sometimes, too. And, anyways, this is... But I just get so frustrated that I have to talk about the shitty things. You know, that's why it seems like wrestling fans are always complaining. I don't think that wrestling fans are as negative. Well, some of them are. Some of them really are. Some of them do want to hate it, it seems like. But You know, most of us have no faith in the product, but we love being proven wrong. It's just that it seems like we complain more than we praise it because, you know, when something good happens, you just want to sit back and enjoy it. You want to enjoy the ride for a change. When there's a loop-de-loop, you're not taking pictures. I don't know what the fuck my analogy is going with. But when there's a bump in the track, you damn well... Fuck it. You know, when something good happens, I just want to sit back and enjoy it. Only when something really terrible happens do I feel compelled to turn on the camera and bitch. And that's what's happening right now. And I'm not just going to put this on my wrestling channel, because I want to do something with my wrestling channel. I want it to get big, and I want to post these videos on it and have it grow naturally. But I also want to post this on my other channels, because I want everyone to see it, and I want everyone to feel the madness that I go through. I think, like, professional wrestling has been, like, at least, like, 60% of the source of the madness in my life. And I like that. I actually enjoy the fact that most of my viewership and my fans aren't, like, wrestling nerds and don't know everything about wrestling, because it gives me a chance to explain these things sort of from the beginning, and explain how fucked up they are completely. Because if I really went in-depth about this stuff, if this video was just for wrestling fans would say it and be like, yeah, we know all this stuff. But I actually like the fact that none of you know what the fuck I'm talking about, because it gives me a chance to explain things thoroughly. Yeah, this is thoroughly analyzing how much I fucking hate wrestling and why. But I love wrestling. Make no mistake. The thing with wrestling, the best part of loving wrestling is hating wrestling. That seems... No, that's fucking retarded. What am I saying? The best part of loving wrestling is loving wrestling. The best part of loving wrestling is when something good happens. Not when something horrible happens. But when something horrible does happen, which is 90% of the time, it is therapeutic to bitch. So, we're not just bitching because we're entitled, or because we're shitty fat smarks. We're bitching because it's therapeutic. And, it's a community thing, I guess. It's a big, happy family of people who are psychotic and hate each other. Just like the locker room of WWE, for that matter. What the fuck am I talking about? This is what it's gonna be. It's been like 10 minutes. I haven't even talked about what I was going to talk about. I haven't even started what I turned the video camera on. It's going to run out of batteries before I get to the point. And it's plugged in, too. It's plugged into the wall. And it'll still run out of batteries before I get to the point. It'll be the year 3000. Y3K is going to hit and shut off the electricity before I get to the point. That's the kind of rambling fucking psycho lunatic I am. And that's just what you're strapped in for. Mr. Footwear's Wild Ride. Drowning in Kayfabe's Wild Ride. Chugga chugga choo choo. We're going off rails just like certain wrestlers' pushes have been derailed. And I can do this all day and all night and all fucking century if I want. Never gonna stop me. Never gonna stop. Oh shit. But anyways, the thing that pisses me off, and this has been pissing me off for a long time, and it's the thing that pisses off a lot of wrestling fans, and all the time, constantly, because they do this to different guys. And I'm going to start from the beginning. I'm going to thoroughly go through the whole thing, and I'm going to use one particular man because I was watching him tonight and it pissed me off. And Cesaro! I'm talking about Cesaro. Oh my god. Have they fucked Cesaro? How? How did they drop the ball so hard with Cesaro? It's amazing. It's a thing of beauty. Where do I fucking begin? I'm gonna bear with me if you're a wrestling fan and you know all this stuff, because I'm gonna start from the beginning and I'm gonna explain this as though I'm assuming that the audience has never watched wrestling ever and has no idea what I'm fucking talking about. Antonio Cesaro is a wrestler. He's not Antonio Cesaro anymore. He's just Cesaro. They dropped his first name. But Cesaro was a wrestler for the WWE. He's been there maybe 4 or 5 years. He's a phenomenal athlete. Phenomenal wrestler. Phenomenal performer. Phenomenal. I mean, the WWE calls their wrestlers superstars. It's like their little buzzword that they use, but this guy, he's a legit, he's a star. He's this guy, he's this Swiss guy, fucking jacked. Not just jacked, but hairy jacked. Chest hair. He looks like a man. He is like the most he's the epitome of like what you picture when you picture like a real classy alpha male. He's handsome, he's foreign, he speaks 5 languages. He's an incredible athlete, one of the best they have. Like, he's balding, but like he's got that thing going on where like he's wearing his balding with such confidence that it actually looks more handsome than if he had hair. It's that's to give you an idea of how fucking alpha this dude is. And he's been with the WWE for a while now, and he's been really, really good for a while now. He's a great wrestler. He's fucking freaky strong. Oh man, I'm just like, right now, just. But he's been with the WWE for a while, but for a long time they didn't really know what to do with him, because the WWE, it's not like how wrestling used to be in 20, 30 years ago, when guys would just be themselves and make their own characters and find what works for them. It's not like that, and it's hurt the business, I think, in a lot of ways, that it's so much more scripted now. But it's hard when guys first get in there. Sometimes they don't know what to do with a guy exactly. They don't know what to package with him, what gimmick to give him. And Cesaro was one of those guys. He was a great wrestler. He had all this like underground indie cred. But they just didn't know what direction really to market him. I guess he was like, well, he's a foreign guy, so I don't know. They gave him like this dumb yodeling gimmick. Yeah. But but he did catch on a little bit, and there was like this people would hold signs for like, you know, Cesaro section signs in the audience. So he was gaining ground, but very slowly, because he didn't really have a good gimmick. And that sort of went on for a while, as it does with many. But there was a faction called the Real Americans, with Jack Swagger and this guy Zeb Coulter, who used to be Dutch Mantel. He was a wrestler from the 70s and 80s, and he's a Vietnam veteran, and he's just this really cool, like, patriotic, giant mustache, beardy-looking guy. It's this faction called the Real Americans, and they were supposed to be, like, a heel faction. They were supposed to be bad guys. Like, their thing was that they were xenophobes. They hated foreigners. They hated immigrants. But the thing that WWE underestimated, because WWE has no idea how to do heels and baby faces anymore, is they're so out of touch with what people react to and how people react to, that this heel group called the Real Americans, they underestimated that the audience is also xenophobic and also hates Mexicans and foreigners. So this faction that was supposed to be heels because they say racist things were getting cheers. And they were like one of the more over babyface teams on the card, despite being a heel, which happens all the time because they don't know how to do baby faces anymore. Whenever they try to build someone up as a baby face, it comes off as phony. They shove the goody two-shoes thing down people's throats, and it just becomes boring, and they sort of chop the guy's legs off, and he can't do anything fun. The heels are more fun. Heels have always been more fun in wrestling, but especially more in the modern age when people are savvy to the business, and they know, you know, that the heels are just more fun to watch. heels generally get cheered more than babyfaces in the WWE, and it's not just because the heels are more entertaining, it's because WWE doesn't really know how to do babyfaces anymore. Except in the case of Daniel Bryan. But that's because of him and his... I mean, you can't make this a heel. They tried making it a heel, but only for a little while, and, you know, even as a heel, people, you know, what the fuck am I talking about? But anyways, this group, the Real Americans, was getting very over. And Jack Swagger's a good wrestler. I've always liked Jack Swagger. He gets dumped on a lot, I think. People think that he's sort of not, he's just kind of generic. And he's kind of generic, I guess, but I just love, like, his voice. I love that he's got that lisp. I think he's a cool guy. And I love Zeb, and I like, the Real Americans were great. And even though they were heels, they had this great entrance theme that this is like, it sounded like this like marching band patriotic. It's like the best theme ever, and even though like it's such a cool theme, and it's such a cool gimmick that even though you can rationalize, well, they're supposed to be, you know, xenophobes and we're supposed to boo them. It's such a cool gimmick and such a cool theme. It's just impossible not to cheer for them. So if they were trying to make them heels, which they were at first, they dropped the ball, but it worked in their favor because they ended up with a pretty over tag team anyways. But eventually, because they didn't know what the fuck else to do with Cesaro, he joined the Real Americans, which on paper is weird because he's a foreigner and the Real Americans were xenophobes. But they played it off like Cesaro is a legitimate immigrant. He came over legally. He has his papers. He speaks 5 languages. He's white. That's really what it was. He's a legitimate, because they're heels. So they played it off like, no, we still hate foreigners, Mexicans, but Cesaro here, he's a real American because he's a legitimate white foreigner. And that's what it was. It was the old manager, Vietnam veteran, the homegrown, all-American, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, varsity guy, Jack Swagger, and the legitimate, classy, dignified, intelligent, white foreigner, Cesaro. And that was the Real Americans. And they were awesome. I loved them. They were still technically heels, but when Cesaro became a Real American, it took off and it became even more perfect because they had those 3 perfect aspects of, like, Americana, and it was a really cool faction. And so they started getting babyface pops, even more so. And so Cesaro finally had a really cool gimmick, and it was great. And he started doing this new signature move, which is a really old move from like really old, like the carnival days of wrestling, called the giant swing, where he picks up the guy by the legs and swings him around a million times and then just drops him. And it's like, if anyone else had done that move in today's day and age, it would have probably come off pretty corny. But just because of who and how Cesaro is and how he presents himself as like this old school epitome of masculinity, kind of hairy-chested, beautiful bald-headed man, it fit. It was an old school move, and it fit because he's an old school type of wrestler, and it was perfect. And it's such a goofy move that it's the kind of wrestling move that a bad guy could never do, because it will always get cheered, because it's just such a fun, goofy move, the giant swing. So at this point, they've basically dropped all pretenses of the Real Americans being villains, because people love them so much, because of the cool gimmick and the cool theme and the We the People and Cesaro's giant swing. That was like the final piece of the puzzle that made the Real Americans fucking good guys and fan favorites. And it was awesome. So, that was cool. Flashback to, no, wait. I'm getting lost here, but anyways, Paul Heyman is Brock Lesnar's advocating Jew, as he puts it. And Paul Heyman is one of the best talkers in the business. Paul Heyman is really good at building talent and getting guys over and cutting promos. And what happened was, for some reason, the Real Americans broke up. And Swagger kept the gimmick, he kept the theme and the Zeb Coulter. And Cesaro went off on his own. And I can't remember if this was post WrestleMania or after, but anyways, what I'm saying is that Cesaro got over naturally. And this is something that the WWE does that fans complain about endlessly, and rightfully so, because it's fucked up, and it's bad business, and it's fucking retarded that they do this. But a lot of the WWE's business policies are designed not from a business standpoint, as much as they like to claim otherwise. A lot of their business policies come from purely the small, fragile egos of the people in charge, which is like Vince McMahon and like Kevin Dunn and Triple H. And it's sad, but it's true. And I'm not vilifying them, because as much shitty things as they've done, they've also created just as many good things. But one thing that the WWE does, and it's fucking disgusting, and it's bad business, is that they pick guys who they want to be over as the big baby face of the company sort of thing. They pick the guys who they want to push. And whenever someone gets themselves over naturally, it's almost like a jealousy thing, where how dare you become a popular main event player on your own without us choosing you to be? How dare a guy that we didn't pick be the one that the fans are behind? It's almost resentful of the fans. And they do this all the time, and what they do is they sabotage their own guys for getting themselves over. And they chop their legs off, and they take away their gimmicks, and they bury them, essentially. And try to take away the fan support. And they do this all the time. They did it with Zack Ryder. They tried to do it with Daniel Bryan. They'll deny it. They'll deny it until the end of time and say that they had a plan and they knew what they were doing, but they didn't. They tried to fuck Daniel Bryan, and they just couldn't do it because of the yes, 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 and you couldn't quell that. But most of the times they are successful in this petty little how dare you get yourself over. And they always talk about, you know, the wrestlers need to take charge and take the reins and get themselves over themselves and find what works for themselves. But whenever one of them does that, they punish them for it. And they script these guys until anything about their real personality or anything that might be interesting about them is completely quashed. There are guys on the roster who are fantastic on the microphone, incredible talkers, incredible cool guys, and you would never know because they script things so badly and they never give these guys on the lower end of the card a chance to say anything. The guys on the top of the card will have the microphone for fucking 20 minutes, whether they're good at talking or not, Roman Reigns, and be able to say all they want. But, you know, they never give these guys a chance to get themselves over. And even when, you know, miracle of miracles, somehow they do get themselves over, they punish them for it. And it's disgusting. It'd be like And you'll see what I'm talking about when I get into talking about what's become of Cesaro. But to put it into perspective, imagine if... I mean, what do you like about me? What do you like about my videos? Is it my sense of humor? Is it that I'm funny or charismatic or whatever? The way I dress, the way I look, the way that I review and analyze things? Do you like that I fucking swear like an edgy faggot? Do you like the fact that that I don't censor myself, or anything about me and my show that you respond to that makes you keep watching me? Imagine if I had a boss telling me, well, you can't do it that way. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't say this. You wouldn't be watching me. Because I'd have nothing. They'd take away everything good and make me another boring fucking copy pasta, that guy with the glasses clone. That's the kind of thing I got myself over with you because I'm being myself. And that's what wrestling is. Whether you're a heel or a babyface, it's about the guys finding what works for themselves. But the WWE doesn't let them anymore, and they have no idea what to do. And it's so hard. It is so hard nowadays for them to get guys over as a babyface. Not only because the heels are more fun, but because when they choose a guy to go babyface, they always overdo it. They saddle them and demean them with catchphrases. They weigh them down with this pandering, sycophantic t-shirt selling, pandering to the kids. And they ram the guys down your throats to where it's obvious that, like, this is the golden boy, cheer for this guy, and it stews resentment in the audience. And that's why all of the guys who they try to push as baby faces, it never works. Nobody wants to cheer for them. All of the guys who become over as baby faces in the modern age were supposed to be heels. And they were so good at heels that people started cheering them. That's how it's been for the last 15 years, pretty much. Longer, even. Because we're savvy. And it's just obnoxious and annoying to see these Superman good guy type characters. And I love Superman. But, so it's very hard to get someone over as a babyface. So, when a guy gets himself over as a babyface on his own, miraculously, and becomes someone that the audience naturally wants to cheer for, why in the fuck would you fuck that up? You'd have to be retarded. And sometimes it really is, like, head-scratching the decisions that WWE makes. Like, you sit there and think, they have to be fucking retarded. Granted, some of the things they do are smart. The John Cena-Brock match, very smart booking. I liked it. It was good. But some of the things you just go, it's fucking retarded. And Cesaro, they take him out of the Real Americans. He's over as a babyface. The fans love him. He has the giant swing that everyone loves to cheer. He wins the Battle Royal. It looks like he's on it looks like he's the next big star, or at least one of the next big stars. And they try to make him a heel out of nowhere, just because, I don't know, because how dare you get yourself over as a babyface when we can't get John Cena over as a babyface, and we've been trying for 15 years to shove him down people's throats, and we still don't get why people aren't responding to it. How dare you get yourself over as a babyface naturally? Fuck you, you're a heel now. And, so they paired him with Paul Heyman. But the thing is, they didn't pair him with Paul Heyman to get him more over. They paired him with Paul Heyman to keep Paul Heyman on TV while Brock Lesnar was not there, so that Paul could get Brock Lesnar over. So what would happen? Paul Heyman and Cesaro would come out every single week, and Paul Heyman would cut a promo about Brock Lesnar in Brock's absence while Cesaro was standing right there. He came out with Cesaro as a heel and cut a promo about Brock Lesnar and didn't say shit about Cesaro. So, Cesaro has gone from being the an up-and-coming natural babyface who people love to being the guy who stands next to the guy who talks about another guy. And it's impossible to get someone over as a heel or a babyface. Like, no one cares about him. And it's almost like they did it on purpose. And there's and the theme music, they didn't have the real American theme anymore because he left them. So they saddled him with one of the worst themes I've ever heard. Cesaro's theme is just this mishmash, jumbled cacophony of butt rock guitars and air sirens, and it's horrible. It's one of the most unpleasant things to hear ever. It's not catchy. It's the most generic thing. Like, if you designed a wrestler in, like, a video game, in, like, Create a Player, and you picked, like, one of the, like, the generic themes for, like, a Create a Wrestler, that's what it sounds like. You couldn't be more generic if you tried. If you tried to make a theme that people wouldn't care about this guy, this is what you'd come up with. And it's just jumbled, horrible, crashing guitars with no sense of melody or anything, and air sirens. And the air sirens are important because here's the thing. He is a heel now. They're trying to get him over as a heel, right? Putting him with Paul Heyman. He's a bad guy now. They don't want him to be a babyface. They want him to be a bad guy. So, but he's still doing the giant swing, which no one will ever boo, because the giant swing is awesome and everyone wants to cheer for it. And the air sirens in his theme are like, because it's the swing, it's a tornado, right? And they start calling him the King of Swing. You see how this doesn't work? Air sirens, King of Swing, giant swing, heel. They're trying to make him a heel, a bad guy, but they're still basing his entire gimmick around this move that he does. That's a babyface move that everyone loves. So it's like, which is it? Is he a bad guy or a good guy? You're building him up like a bad guy, but he's still doing the good guy things. He doesn't have to cheat to win his matches. He still does the good guy moves. Everyone still wants to love him, but you're putting him against other good guys and trying to make him the bad guy. And so the audience just doesn't know what to do. They don't know whether to cheer or to boo him. And so what happens is the audience does nothing. When you can't decide whether to cheer or boo someone, there's no reaction. And that's the worst thing that can happen. And when there's no reaction, that's it. It's done. And it's almost like they did it on purpose. Because they have to know. They have to realize that this... I mean, come on! They've been booking wrestling for 60 fucking years. Longer. Right? And this is the most basic fucking bad guy or good guy. You can... I mean, you can be like a bad guy who's in the middle and like on his way to becoming a good guy. That's like the natural progression. Bad guy does bad things. Bad guy is so good at doing bad things, people naturally start to like him, and for a while he's in between, but then he's right over there to good guy again. That's how it always happens, and that's how it happened with Cesaro. He was a bad guy, but people loved him. He became a good guy, started doing good guy things, then they made him a bad guy again, but he was still doing his good guy things, and they tried to fucking force this bad guy role on him that no longer applied. And it makes no sense. And the audience gets fucking confused. The audience gets deflated. And when it becomes apparent that they're just fucking sabotaging this guy and they're not going to do anything with him, the audience gives up hope and stops caring. It's impossible to care about these things after a while because you can sit down and be angry and do videos like this for a while, but eventually you just stop caring because you just get tired. And they do this all the time. A guy gets over naturally, and they resent him for it, so they fucking destroy him with bad booking. And it makes no sense. They should be building all of their guys up as stars. They should be focusing their intelligence and their good booking on every single person on the roster. Which is, I know that's impossible, but I mean the guys who get over, let them fucking be over. And it's so fucking frustrating as a fan and as a person with common sense who understands... stuff like this is the reason why Vince McMahon loses like $300 million in a day. I mean, I'm not a fucking business major. I'm not an economist. I'm not a fucking financial genius. But I do have common sense. I mean, sometimes, I'm a fan. I don't know anything about business. I don't wear a fucking suit to work. I'm a fucking idiot. So when I'm sitting here knowing that I could do business better, that's a problem. It's not me being arrogant. It's just the direction of what they're doing with the guys being that damn bad. That the average fucking fat asshole on a couch in their basement knows how to do business better than they do. That's when you know it's gotten bad. And not all the time, not with everyone, but in the case of some of the guys like Cesaro and some of the guys who get over and then they destroy them, that's the case. It's bad fucking business. And it blows my fucking mind. So, Jesus. So, eventually, because it's now that they've officially killed Cesaro dead and destroyed any momentum he had. And I'm serious, like 6 months ago, not even, 4 months ago, WrestleMania, it seemed like he was going to be one of the top guys. And in that short of time, they completely destroyed it. They killed all momentum, completely derailed him. And he's just dead. No one gives a shit anymore about Cesaro. It's impossible to give a shit at a certain point about him. Because they fucking sabotage their own guys so badly when they're not the guys they want to push. And on the flip side, they push a guy like Roman Reigns down your throat, who Roman Reigns is cool, but just might not be ready to be that top guy on his own. And they push guys down their throat who might not be ready, and that doesn't work either. That comes off as pandering, and it makes people resent the guys. Which is what they did with John Cena 10 years ago, and which is why people still hate John Cena. But, so, Cesaro's with Heyman. No one cares about him anymore. He's not a heel, he's not a babyface, he's getting no fucking reaction whatsoever. He's not even in like a program. He's not even in a feud with anybody because nobody knows what to do with him. He has shit music. He has a manager who comes out to the ring and talks about some other fucking guy who's not even here. While meanwhile he doesn't get to cut any promos of his own, so he doesn't get to talk. His manager is putting over someone else. He's doing moves that doesn't make sense for a heel to do when he's a heel. And the whole thing is just a fucking mess. So, now that everyone doesn't care about him, they take him away from Paul Heyman. And they don't even make like a feud out of it. Like, they could easily do like a, oh, I hate you, Paul Heyman, I want to be a good guy thing. And he'd be a good guy again, and he'd get his momentum back, a little bit of it, as easy as that. But they don't even do that. They don't even announce it. He just shows up one week and says, I'm not with Paul Heyman anymore, and that's it. That's all they fucking say. So, now he doesn't even have Paul Heyman, and he's still not cutting promos. They're not letting him. And so now, and then they take away his giant swing finally, because if he's a heel, you can't do the good guy move, right? They stopped calling him the King of Swing. So, now we're at a point where he still has the terrible music, and in fact I think they even remixed it to make it worse, so now there's even more sirens in it, and more jumbled guitars. So he still has the terrible music. He still is not being given the mic to cut promos. He doesn't have a manager anymore to cut promos for him, not that it was helping him anyways. He doesn't have his moves anymore. And they're still trying to build him up as a heel, despite the fact that he never cheats, and he never does anything overtly heelish, and he never cuts promos, so he's not really a heel. They're just not letting him do... So he's not really a heel. He doesn't cheat, he doesn't cut promos. All he is is a would-be babyface with terrible music and not allowed to do the moves that people like from him. So he's nothing. He's not a good guy or a bad guy. He's just nothing. He's just a fucking phenomenally talented wrestler who still has like the best matches on the card, steals the show every night, but nobody does anything with him, so no one cares. So... it's so fucking bad. It's so fucking... So it's been like this for a while. And, you know... so now that nobody cares about him anymore, it's just... it's like it's over. He was so fucking... people were so behind him as a real American. And so, not just as a real American, as him. Naturally, from doing his moves, his giant swing, his fucking... this thing that he did, people loved him. His fucking suplex over the rope, and they took it all away. Because I don't know, I guess they were resentful. I guess he wasn't the guy that they wanted to, for people to like. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it is. It's just so fucking, over and over again they do this to guys. And it got to a point where it's so fucking no one cares about him anymore. They've killed him so much that it got to a point where at the pay-per-view the other night, he was on the pre-show. This guy went from winning a battle royal at WrestleMania to wrestling on the pre-show and losing clean to RVD. And it's sad because he deserves better, and so many guys on the roster deserve better. But, so... oh yeah, so that was SummerSlam, Sunday, a couple days ago. He loses on the pre-show. So that's like about, that's pretty fucking far to have sunk. Now it's Monday Night Raw. And this was just yesterday. And this really burned my fucking bacon. Jack Swagger. Since Cesaro left the Real Americans, Jack Swagger has still been doing the Real American thing. And being pretty much a complete babyface now. And they've changed the gimmick to, they're not so xenophobic anymore. Well, they're still xenophobic. But now Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter, as the Real Americans, have been feuding with Alexander Rusev, who's like this Russian bad guy from Russia. He hates America. He comes out every week. He cuts promos about how America sucks and all the reasons that Americans are fat and lazy idiots. And everything he's saying is totally true. That's what's funny to me, is that like the anti-American promos that he cuts are like totally true, but people, but like the audience just like proves him right by being idiots and booing him anyways out of racism. But that's a fucking a ramble for another time. The point is, Jack Swagger, as a Real American, has been fighting the big scary Russian guy for the last couple of months, which has been awesome. It's an amazing feud. They've both been selling it really well. The matches have been pretty good. And it's just like a really simple, old school type of wrestling feud. It's not overcomplicated. It's exactly like, you know, fucking Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik 30 years ago. It's a classic wrestling feud. All-American versus the evil foreigner. That's about as classic wrestling trope as you can get. And it's been great fun, because it's always fucking fun. That's the kind of thing that I love about wrestling. That it's a big fucking goofy sports cartoon where the fucking good guy American fights the bad guy Russian. Even though in real life, America is a fascist fucking police state hellhole, we can sort of suspend our disbelief in wrestling and believe in this sort of fictional cartoon world of good guy American, bad guy Russian. It's fun. And it's been a great feud, so. Real Americans Jack and Zeb have been feuding with Rusev, and it's been great. Last night, or a couple nights ago at the pay-per-view, Rusev won a flag match, where if you win the match, you get your flag for your country, and you have to stand, you stand and you do your national anthem. And it was fucking phenomenal. It was spectacular. I mean, you can't do this feud more perfectly than they have been doing it. But I'll get to how they fucked it up. But, so like the match was, Jack Swagger and Rusev are fighting for their countries. Right as the match starts, Rusev starts shit before the bell even rings. Jack Swagger gets him and puts him in his ankle lock. And Rusev, he fucking destroys Rusev's foot. And before the match even starts, Rusev, who has been like the big, badass, evil foreigner who no one can beat, the All-American, before the match has even started, has fucking crippled his foot. And Rusev is now in the corner being the cowardly heel. I can't do the match. I can't do the match. Call it off. But the ref says, fuck you, the match is still going on. They start the match, and Rusev is selling the shit out of this fucked up ankle for the whole match. Which is great, because nobody ever fucking sells anymore. John Cena never fucking sells anything. John Cena will get decked in the fucking face 100 times and get up and act like it's nothing. The exception being his match with Brock Lesnar, which was fantastic, and I, take all that stuff back for, whatever. But the psychology in this match was so great. Rusev is selling this ankle the whole match, and the way the match ended was perfect. It was fantastic if they were continuing the feud, which it doesn't look like they fucking are, which pisses me off, but the way the match ended was perfect. And I'm telling you that this has a point. This ties back into Cesaro. I'll get to the point. But the way they ended the match was perfect. Rusev gets Swagger in the Accolade, which is his finisher. His ankle is so fucked up that he can't even do his finisher properly. So even though Jack Swagger's in the finisher, Rusev is doing it, he has this look of this excruciating pain on his face because he's still selling the ankle, which is awesome, that he's selling it so well that his ankle's fucked up. It makes it seem real and fucking cool, and it's good. Rusev has Swagger in this hold the Accolade. So the bad guy has got the good guy in his move. Jack Swagger, the good guy, the American, refuses to tap out. He will not tap out of this move. He will not give up. He will not surrender to the Ruskies. And Rusev is in excruciating pain. It's just like two fucking warriors from their countries fighting each other, seeing which one fucking dies first in this move, which is hurting them both. It's just like a fucking Alaskan ear-pulling contest. Like fucking Vulcan Raven telling Solid Snake. Like two men sit in the cold and pull each other's ears. It's a test of endurance. These two fucking monsters fighting for their own sense of patriotism in this hold, and it's killing them both to be in this hold, and one of them is going to die first. It's fucking... It's so... You see, this is the kind of thing about wrestling that I love. See, I'm positive when something is good. So Jack's in the hold. He's not giving up. One of them's going to die first. Jack refuses to tap out and eventually just passes out from the pain. And that's how the match ends. So Rusev wins the match. Russia wins the match. But still, the good guy did not tap out. He just fucking died. So it sort of makes them both look stronger. There's kind of not really a loser in the situation. Rusev looks like a fucking amazing, powerful beast because he went through the pain of the ankle while still winning the match. And Swagger looks like a fucking American hero who refused to tap out. So Rusev wins the match, and he stands, and his flag goes behind him. No, first he wins the match, and then he and his manager attack the manager Zeb Coulter, the old man, which gives them all this more heat, which makes the feud even more... You could keep this going all year, and you could culminate it at WrestleMania, and it would be perfect if you wanted to. It was such a fucking a great, good, classic, old-school wrestling feud. And so Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter, the real Americans, are dead. They're dead in the middle of the ring, and Rusev is standing triumphant, shouting the Russian national anthem with a giant Russian flag behind him. and the crowds are going ape shit, booing. You couldn't get more nuclear fucking bad guy heat on this guy. Perfect ending of that match. Now we get to Raw. Oh my god. You know, sometimes the WWE, it's mind-boggling. Sometimes they have something good going, and they just like arbitrarily decide to flush everything good they have going down the toilet. And that's why, as a fan, even when something good happens, you can't be completely excited. You're always dreading it, because you grow accustomed to the WWE fucking this shit up. Like, even when something good happens, like, the first thought in every wrestling fan's mind all the time when something amazing happens is, wow! That was awesome! How are they gonna fuck it up? And 9 times out of 10, they always do. And it's so fucking frustrating as a fan, because it's like basic storytelling stuff that they mess up. It's not even like complicated. And like, I'm serious. Wrestling is not complicated. And that's the thing. An idiot, an invalid could book wrestling. It's the most simple form of storytelling in the world. And that's what makes it good. You know, bad guy does something shitty to the good guy. Good guy eventually gets revenge. And you can stretch it out as long as you want, as long as enough interesting stuff keeps happening, and you keep... It's fucking... an idiot could book wrestling properly most of the time. It's not complicated. But they just drop the ball sometimes in ways that, like, you wouldn't believe that the biggest wrestling company in the world that's been doing this for years and years and decades could make such stupid, idiotic, amateur fucking booking mistakes. It's like... I mean, if you're a writer and you go to community college, fucking 101, storytelling 101, one semester, you would know more basic storytelling than it seems like the WWE writers know a lot of the time. That's how bad it gets sometimes. They just drop shit. They stretch out the bad stuff forever, and they just arbitrarily drop the good stuff randomly. So you can never get too excited as a wrestling fan. You're always dreading the next pay-per-view, because there's always the sense of dread of they're going to fuck up everything good they've got, and it's going to just make me sad again. So, Rusev and Swagger, that amazing match that could continue the feud forever, or for a while anyways, and make it even bigger. Monday Night Raw happens, and I can't even... I'm psyching myself out talking about it because it pisses me off that much, because it was that obvious to me what they should have done, and I was so like blown away by the fact that they didn't. Jack Swagger comes out. He cuts a promo about the match. He goes, you know, I lost the match and I'm not going to make excuses, but part of being a real American is knowing when the chips are down, you know, you band together and you know, babyface stuff. Classic a good guy speech. And it's working. It's a good promo from Jack, which we don't often hear because usually Zeb speaks for him, but Zeb's dead because the Ruski beat him up. So it's just Zach tonight, fighting for America alone. And Zach cuts this good guy promo of, I lost, but, you know, Americans, you know. So you're thinking, okay, this is good. You're going to continue the feud. This is the correct way to continue the feud with Rusev. Jack has a match with Cesaro on Monday Night Raw. Jack versus Cesaro. Cesaro, who used to be a real American. Right? Jack is still hurt. His ribs are taped up from the match last night. And you would think that this is... like, if you were a commentator for this match, it's obvious how you build up this match, right? you focus on the fact that they used to be friends. And you focus on that, you know, during the match. They don't. I think they mention it once in passing that they used to be on a team. But for the most part, you know, Cesaro doesn't have a gimmick anymore. No one gives a shit. Nobody mentions anything about their history together. Nobody mentions or puts any real, you know, articulation into their history together as former Real American Tag Team partners. So it's just, it's a match that should have a story presented as a generic fucking match. And the whole time, that fucking idiot JBL, the commentary on WWE is so bad. And that's, again, another rant for another time. But JBL, that fucking retard, is screaming constantly, all night, about what a pussy and what a coward Jack Swagger is for failing America. And there's always one commentator who's like the heel commentator who talks shit about the baby faces. But it doesn't always work, especially now when like the lines are kind of blurry with like heel or baby faces. It's hard to explain, but the way that JBL is screaming about what a coward and a pussy Jack Swagger is, it doesn't come off like the heel commentator trying to bury the good guy. It comes off as just annoying and fucking horrible. And it doesn't even make sense because fucking JBL is like a rich Texan fucking patriot character. He should be in Jack's corner even as a heel. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's retarded. But that's, anyways. Jack and Cesaro are fighting. Former tag team partners, but no one mentions it. No one cares about that. So Cesaro is working over Jack Swagger's ribs because they're wrapped up and injured. And Cesaro beats Jack Swagger clean. But remember, he's injured, so he has an excuse to lose. So, right up until this point, this is good. It makes Cesaro look like a strong heel. And Jack still has an excuse for losing because he's injured. So nobody, you know. Now, think about this. After what I told you happened at SummerSlam, with Rusev beating the Real Americans, the good guy promo that Jack cuts on Monday saying that he's not going to give up because a Real American doesn't give up, fighting his former tag team partner in a match that night, losing because of his injured ribs while the other guy still looks strong. Now, think about this. Do you know what should happen, given everything that I've said about Cesaro's push being derailed and not knowing what to do with him? You do. You must. The gears are turning in your head right now. The puzzle pieces are coming together because it's the most obvious fucking thing. A monkey could do this correctly. A monkey could book this right. And I'm sitting home thinking that this is what's going to happen because it has to happen. There's no other fucking way. And if you haven't pieced it together, that's fine. I'll explain. This is what should happen. Cesaro beats Jack because of his ribs are injured. They both still look strong. And remember, they're former tag partners. Cesaro leaves. And this isn't what happened. Okay, keep in mind, this is not what happened. This is what should happen if the writers were not complete pants-shitting retards. So this is my fantasy booking of what should have happened. Cesaro beats Swagger. Cesaro walks up the ramp to leave. Swagger's laying in the ring. As Cesaro is walking up the ramp, Alexander Rusev comes out, the evil Russian who beat Jack last night. Cesaro stops, looks at Rusev heading to the ring, and continues walking back to out of the ramp, backstage. As Cesaro comes to the ring, Not Cesaro, as Rusev comes to the ring. Sorry. So Jack Swagger is in the ring having lost a match with his ribs hurt. Rusev comes in the ring and starts beating the shit out of Jack Swagger. Like a fucking bad guy that he is. Right? The audience at this point is, of course, going crazy. Because how dare you? Jack is injured. You're just rubbing it in his face. You're coming out here just to rub salt in the wound and beat up our American hero. You dastardly villainous Ruski son of a bitch. How dare you do this? Rusev is beating the shit out of Jack Swagger. As this is happening, his former tag team partner Cesaro is standing on the ramp watching it. Hands on his hips. Looking conflicted. Do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see how fucking obvious this is? Cesaro has a change of heart. He rushes to the ring, beats the shit out of Rusev, chases him out of the ring, saves his former tag team partner, Jack Swagger, and the Real Americans are reunited once more as a force to be reckoned with for America as a unit, as best brothers fighting off the Ruski. And now, it happened. I'm sorry. The fucking ran out of space. I gotta get a camera that has more space, because that is fucking ridiculous. Every time, I hate it. And I had full space. There was nothing else on the camera. It just fucking, that was 8 gigs there. I've been fucking talking for a long time, I guess. That's fucking horrible. And also, it does this thing where, like, if you film something long, it splits it into 2 at a certain point, which I hate. So there will probably be a point in the middle of that where something was lost and it got split up. I fucking hate it. Why does it fucking do that? So, yeah, sorry about that. Sorry I got interrupted in the middle of my fucking splooging. It was getting good, right? It was. You were getting excited. I was getting pumped. I'll try to regain some of that enthusiasm and pick up where I left off. So, back to what I was saying. Just to recap, my fantasy booking for what should have fucking happened on Monday night. Jack Swagger's dead in the ring. Cesaro goes up the ramp. Rusev, lock eyes. He goes. Rusev's beating the shit out of defenseless Jack Swagger. Cesaro, he becomes a good guy again. He rushes to the aid. He saves Jack Swagger. Chases off the Russian. The Real Americans reunited. Okay? Now, at this point, the audience would be going fucking apeshit. This is how you get a good babyface pop. Sounds obvious, right? So, what we have now is Cesaro's a good guy again, as he should be, and he's with the Real Americans again, as he should be. The Real Americans are reunited, more powerful than ever, ready to fight for their fallen manager, Zeb Coulter, ready to fight for America. Okay? This accomplishes 2 very important things. This kills 2 birds with 1 stone. 1, it lets this amazing old school wrestling feud continue for longer, more months, the Russians versus the American, because now it wouldn't, the story has legs to move forward with. It wouldn't be the same Jack and Rusev match that we've seen a few times. Now Cesaro can fight Rusev while Jack's in his corner healing and Zeb's at home healing. So it's like he's fighting for both of them. And this is a whole new layer of the story that they could tell, and they could keep this feud going. And this feud is money! This feud is money! It's gold! And they could keep it going. That's the first thing that it accomplishes. The second thing that it accomplishes is that Cesaro instantly would get back all of the momentum that he lost. His career would instantly get righted back on track. He'd be where he belonged. The crowd would be going apeshit for him again. He'd be able to do the swing again. Imagine the fucking pop when Cesaro finally got that giant swing and started swirling the fucking Russian around in the middle of the ring in a match. God, it's like, it's going to bring a tear to my eye just thinking about it. It's money. It would be fucking, it'd be a thing of beauty. That, as a wrestling fan, deep down, is what we all want to see. Something, that's the thing. That's what it is about wrestling. That'll bring you back to that moment when you were a kid, watching Hogan beat Slaughter, or watching Hogan fight Warrior, you know, or watching Savage fight Warrior, or or that's that in a microcosm is professional wrestling and what it's all about. When Cesaro reunites with the Real Americans and saves his friend and fights for his friends and for his country, for his adopted country, and finally gets Rusev in a match and puts that fucking swing on him at last, swings him around, the audience goes apeshit. That's wrestling. That's fucking awesome. So, you know, it's perfect. It's so obvious. And being obvious wouldn't make it any less satisfying. That's the thing about these kinds of stories. You can tell them over and over again for all time, and as long as you tell them right and put a new spin on it, because the swing, it'll be so obvious that that's what should have happened. But that's not what happened. Nope. Do you see my frustration now? Do you see that the frustration of a wrestling fan is not entitlement? It's not smarkiness. It's not negativity or mindless pessimism. The frustration of a wrestling fan is the love and appreciation for what could be. And what gets mangled and destroyed and just dropped by the incompetent fucking monkeys mashing on the typewriters who fucking write this shit. Because that amazing scenario, that glorious fucking picture that I just painted for you, did not happen and probably never will now. Because here's what actually happened on Raw. Cesaro beats Jack and leaves without them ever even mentioning that they used to be friends, or really articulating it at all, or getting it across at all. Cesaro beats Jack and leaves, and Bo Dallas, another guy who they fucking seemingly decided not to do anything with, but Bo Dallas comes out and cuts a heel promo on Jack. Setting up, what? A Bo versus Jack feud? What does that have to do with the Real Americans? What does that have to do with anything? Does that mean that they're dropping the Rusev feud? Does that mean that they're dropping this golden fucking Rusev feud? So that, what, Jack can fight Bo for no fucking reason? Is that what they're doing? Cesaro just leaves and continues on his aimless nowhere push, and Bo Dallas is now going to fight Jack? And Rusev, is that what they're doing? Bo Dallas versus... So then later in the night, Alexander Rusev comes out and gloats about having beaten Jack Swagger in the pay-per-view, and he gloats about You know, they gloat about Mother Russia and all this shit. They cut their typical Russia promo. And they get interrupted by Mark Henry. Not Jack. Not a fucking reunited Real Americans with Jack and Cesaro. No, that would be too glorious. No. They get interrupted by Mark Henry. Mark Henry comes down and cuts a flag-waving American promo on Rusev. And then... God, it hurts. It hurts to fucking talk about. And Mark Henry fucking beats up Rusev and power slams him, setting up a feud between them two. Do you see how fucking wrong this is? I love Mark Henry. I adore Mark Henry. He cut a fantastic promo. He cuts great promos. He's one of the most underrated guys they have. But it's so wrong. He's so wrong. It's so wrong that they're dropping this Rusev, this Russian versus America promo. And not... It's so obvious. The thing that I said about Cesaro coming to save Jack and continuing the feud, I'm not patting myself on the back like a genius for coming up with that. Because I thought it was obvious. It should be obvious. If you've been watching wrestling, not even if you've been watching wrestling, if you've ever seen a story, any story, ever, then, I mean, you know, good guy versus bad guy. Bad guy wins, good guy is at his lowest point, good guy rises up, maybe his friends help him, good guy eventually overcome, you know, that's fucking what wrestling is. And it's so fucked up sometimes, they just drop shit, that sometimes storylines just end out of nowhere and the bad guy just wins, and that's it. And that's... And I love Mark Henry, but this is so wrong. So... It just blows my mind because it would have been so easy to both continue the feud while at the same time saving Cesaro and giving him everything that he lost. But either they don't want him to get back, either they want him to flounder, or they're just incompetent. And I'm inclined to believe that it's the latter. They're just shockingly incompetent. And you know? So now I have this amazing picture in my head of what could be, and it's clashing with what is, and what is a big fucking pile of shit, and like this weird, unfinished storyline where the bad guy just wins, and then it's just dropped, and then, you know, what is going on? So Jack Swagger is just defeated, and the Real Americans are failures. Jack and Zeb are failures, and are now gonna fight Bo Dallas for no reason. Meanwhile, the evil Ruski, who fucking just won, is gonna fight Mark Henry when it makes no fucking sense. They should just put Cesaro with the Real Americans again. Put the injured Jack Ryder I'm fucking losing my mind. Put the injured Jack Swagger in his corner. Cesaro fights Rusev for the Real Americans. It's so obvious. He puts the swing. He puts Rusev in the swing. It'll never happen. Ah! It's just a dream. To sleep, perchance to dream. It's butterflies in a net. You try to catch the butterflies and they fly through the holes. Jack Swagger is gonna fight Bo Dallas! Why? Why? Why does the WWE hate good storytelling? Why do they hate storytelling at all? They just drop. And this is a regular occurrence. Don't get it wrong like this is like a once in a lifetime. This is a regular thing with the WWE. Storylines are dropped out of nowhere. Good storylines that were catching on with the audience are dropped out of nowhere. Guys who were getting over naturally with the audience, whether as a good guy or a bad guy. Guys that had a good thing going. Management, the office just, I don't know, arbitrarily gets bored of them and decides to drop it. Or gets resentful of them and cuts them at the knees. Purposely. It's fucking horrible, man. It's fucking horrible. And that's what you deal with being a wrestling fan like your whole life. That's the kind of thing, you know? And like I said, there's always one thing or a couple things on the show that are being done correctly at any given time that are just good enough to give you hope and keep you watching, even though 90% of it, all it does is just give you pain and just make you miserable. It's like, god damn. It's... And now you see. Now you see, you know, bronies. Now you see why I can't really take all the doomsaying in that fandom seriously. You know, when like the new season isn't going the way you want, or like a new episode was not as good as you wanted of your favorite show, and you say, oh, this show's going downhill, it's going in a bad direction. Now you see why I can't take that as seriously as some, because I've been dealing with that so much worse over here as a wrestling fan my entire life. Nothing compares. I mean, if you're like any fandom, anything you're a fan of, you know, a lot of things have a reputation of being taken in absurd directions and being fucked up and just fucking the fans, you know? Video games, like the Mass Effect 3 thing, or Final Fantasy, how that's gone hill. Movies, like Star Wars, right? George Lucas ruined Star Wars. You know, or the Marvel movies, Spider-Man movies are just getting worse and worse, and they can't get the legal rights to put them in Avengers, and that's frustrating. You know, or comics. Comics are always getting fucked up with horrible decision making and bad storylines. You know, but all of those fandoms, all of those frustrations, none of it compares to wrestling week in and week out your whole life, to being a fan of wrestling. Nothing fucking compares. It's the worst. It's the pits. And, so anyways, what brought this whole rant about was that I was watching Main Event just now. And Cesaro comes out. I was watching Main Event. And Cesaro comes out wearing a suit like they're trying to repackage him, like desperately trying to do something with him because they failed in seeing the most obvious fucking path they should have taken last night. And he comes out and he sits on commentary, and there's like a match going on in the ring, and Cesaro is sitting there in his new suit on commentary, and while the match is going on, the commentators are talking to Cesaro, and they're saying things that at first are, I'm like, why are they saying that? Because they're saying things like, so, Cesaro, you're Swiss, and you speak 5 languages, and yada yada yada, and they're sort of like interviewing him on commentary while this match is going on, and I'm like, you know, why are they saying things that I already know about Cesaro? And I realize what they're doing is they're reintroducing all of this information. Hey guys, remember that Cesaro is Swiss? Remember that he speaks 5 languages? And look, he's in a suit. He's in a suit because bad guys wear suits, right? So, and this is like what Cesaro was when he first came to the WWE, when they didn't know anything about him or what to do with him. When he first came, they just said, I don't know, he's a bad guy, he's Swiss, he speaks 5 languages, I don't fucking know. So, they're reintroducing this information. So, Cesaro has gotten fucked so bad that he is officially exactly back at square one with his gimmick. So that's his 4-year, or however long he's been with the WWE, that's his journey in the WWE thus far. He came in, nobody knew what to do with him. He got himself over naturally as a good guy. They didn't want him to be a good guy, so they cut him at the knees, turned him into a bad guy, but didn't know what to do with him. They fucked him. They made his character confusing. They made nobody care about him, and it got to the point where it all came full circle, where just nobody fucking, just like when he came, nobody fucking gives a shit anymore. And it's sad. It's almost as sad as them dropping the Rusev and Swagger feud so unceremoniously. And I honestly don't know which is worse. I don't know which one of those things pisses me off the most. But I do know that the fact that it would have been so obvious and easy to solve both of those dilemmas and at the same time with just one, that fact makes it all the worse. It makes... So that's wrestling. Now you know my pain. You know? Being a wrestling fan is like being at war. That's it. That's it.
I'm grounded in blue.